The first cold winds of autumn swept through the small town of Ironwood, rattling loose shutters and carrying with them the scent of wood smoke and damp earth. Jacob Reeves leaned on the wooden rail of his porch, sipping lukewarm coffee and staring down at the quiet street. His life, he admitted, had grown unbearably monotonous. Just a man in his mid-30s living in a creaky old farmhouse on the edge of town. But that morning, his eyes caught on something unusual. She stood near the corner lamppost, wrapped in ragged blankets that looked more like burnt cloth than fabric. Her skin was a pale lavender, faintly glowing when the sunlight brushed it, and her silver-white hair hung in tangled waves down her shoulders. At first glance, one might have dismissed her as a runaway or a performer in strange makeup. But Jacob had lived through the Great Exodus Wars 20 years ago. He knew what she was. An alien. One of the displaced who had never gone home after the peace treaties were signed. She looked fragile, almost breakable, clutching the blanket around her thin frame. And despite every instinct that told him to stay out of trouble, Jacob found himself walking toward her. "You hungry?" he asked, voice low, cautious. Her eyes flicked to him, wide and luminous, like molten silver. For a moment she didn't speak, then she gave a small nod. Her voice was hoarse when she finally managed. "Yes, but no charity. Work, please." Jacob hesitated, then rubbed the back of his neck. His house was a mess. Dishes piled in the sink, laundry untouched, dust thick on the floors. He'd been putting it off for weeks. "You can clean," he said slowly. "I'll pay. Food and some cash." Her expression shifted, relief, and something almost like gratitude, though pride stiffened her posture. "Deal." By noon, she was inside his farmhouse, moving quietly, efficiently, as though she had once known such tasks well. Her movements were graceful despite her exhaustion. She scrubbed the counters, folded clothes, even fixed a loose hinge on the kitchen cabinet. Jacob mostly kept to himself, but as the hours passed, he caught himself watching her. She moved differently than humans, light on her feet, silent, precise. And every so often, when she thought he wasn't looking, she paused to breathe in the scent of food cooking on the stove, her expression aching with hunger. At dinner, he slid a plate toward her. She hesitated, then ate quickly, almost desperately, though never without manners. When she finally set the fork down, her voice was soft. "It has been a long time." Jacob leaned back, studying her. "What's your name?" Her silver eyes flicked up. "Lyra." "Jacob," he said simply. "You can stay until you're rested." "Just the couch." She nodded. "Thank you." That night, rain tapped against the windows. Jacob lay in bed, trying to ignore the creaks of the old farmhouse and the strange sense that his life had shifted course without his consent. He told himself she was just a stranger, a drifter. Helping her for one night meant nothing. But when he woke near midnight, he sensed something was wrong. The house was too quiet. He rose, padded down the hall, and stopped cold when he pushed his bedroom door wider. Lyra was there, in his bed. The blankets pulled up to her shoulders, her silver hair spilled across the pillow, her fragile frame trembling as though even in sleep she braced for rejection. Jacob froze in the doorway. "Lyra!" Her eyes fluttered open, and panic flashed across her face. She sat up, clutching the blanket. "I'm sorry." The couch, it was so cold, and the storm. Her voice cracked. "I'll leave. Don't be angry." He should have told her to get out. He should have reminded her of boundaries. But the fear in her voice struck him harder than he expected. She wasn't trying to take advantage of him. She was scared, terrified of being thrown back out into the rain. Jacob sighed, running a hand down his face. "I'm not angry. Just, you should have asked." She bowed her head. I will. If you still want me gone tomorrow, I will leave. Something in her words twisted inside him. He thought of the empty farmhouse, the silence that had haunted him for years. He thought of her hands, raw and blistered from scrubbing, of her eyes, luminous yet so tired. No, he said quietly. Stay. The days turned into a week. Lyra worked tirelessly, fixing shutters, mending old curtains, cooking meals that surprised him with their delicacy. Jacob found himself talking to her, learning small pieces of her past. How her ship had been destroyed, how she had survived by wandering from one town to the next, never welcome for long. She never asked for pity, only work, only dignity. And yet, each night she drifted closer. Not in the bed, not again without permission, but in the small things. Sitting across from him at dinner. Standing on the porch with him in silence as the sun set. The farmhouse, once cold and hollow, now hummed with quiet life. One evening, Jacob caught her staring out the window, her expression unreadable. You're planning to leave, he said. Lyra's lips parted, but she didn't deny it. I cannot be a burden forever. You're not a burden, he said firmly. You've done more for this place in a week than I've managed in years. And, he exhaled. It's been a long time since I've had someone here. Feels different. Feels right. Her silver eyes softened, shimmering as though tears threatened. You don't know what you're offering. To shelter me, to keep me. Others would call you a fool. Then I'll be a fool, Jacob said. That night, she didn't sneak into his bed. She walked there, openly, standing at the doorway with trembling hands. May I? She whispered. Jacob hesitated only a moment before nodding. Yeah, you may. She slid under the covers beside him, her warmth cautious but real. And for the first time in years, Jacob fell asleep with the sound of another's breath steady beside his own. The storm outside had passed, but in his heart he knew this was just the beginning of something greater than either of them had planned. That night was the first in years Jacob didn't dream of empty rooms and broken silence. Instead, he dreamed of warmth, of silver eyes watching him not with fear but trust. When morning came, Lyra was already awake, sitting at the edge of the bed. Her hands twisted in her lap, as though she feared the night had been only a fragile illusion. You're still here, Jacob murmured, rubbing sleep from his eyes. She glanced back, uncertain. You don't regret letting me stay? He shook his head. Not for a second. Her shoulders loosened just a little. Then maybe I can try to build something again. Here. With you. Jacob reached across the space between them, resting his hand gently over hers. Her skin was cool, but she didn't pull away. For the first time, she looked at him not like a stranger offering charity, but like a man she could trust her fragile future with. The farmhouse creaked as the sun rose higher, golden light spilling across the worn floorboards. Outside, the world still whispered with prejudice, still turned its back on the forgotten. But here, in this house at the edge of town, something had changed. Two lonely souls had found each other. Jacob squeezed her hand, his voice steady. You're not just someone I hired to clean. You're not just passing through. If you want it, this is your home now. Lyra's lips parted, a tremor in her breath, before a small, radiant smile broke through.